organizers, and I'm very pleased to be the moderator of today. We have an amazing panel today, amazing people that will be sharing on their amazing work and help us explore on the theme of future generation rights and rights of nature. We would like to thank the Explorers Club also for hosting this beautiful event in this beautiful building today. And first off, I will invite Natalia Green, Director of the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature, Deborah Cisneros, Chief of Staff to the Special Representative for Climate Change and the Government of Panama, Victoria Wallen, Co-Executive Director and Project Manager of Future Generations Tribunal, and Constanza Prieto from Earth Law Center and Latin American Legal Director on stage. Each of them will have a short presentation, 10 minutes more or less, and we will first give the word to Natalia Green. She's the Global Director of the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature. She's also a member of GARD's Executive Committee, Secretary of the International Rights of Nature Tribunal. She's an Ecuadorian activist and political scientist, promoted to the recognition of rights of nature in Ecuador's constitution, and has worked on the environmental and indigenous aspects of the Yasuni ITT initiative to keep oil underground in the Amazon. Natalia was previously president and currently vice president of the Ecuadorian coordinator of Organization for the Defense of Nature and the Environment, and she's the expert of the UN Harmony with Nature Initiative Network since 2016. So Natalia, we'll give you the word now.
Thank you so much. I just want to confirm that everything is ready and working. I would like to thank you first and thank you everybody. We also have some audience online, so thank you everybody online for listening to us. As Marie has said, this event, the Rights of Nature, the Rights of Future Generation, is part of the UN Summit of the Future. That is a UN event that is happening this week in New York. And we wanted to make sure that we call with the main partners to be organizing this event together, that we will be part of this UN Summit of the Future, talking about not only the rights of future generations, that what comes to mind is the rights of people, but the rights of all future generations, including non-humans, with the rights of the future generations that are also nature. As the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature, we were able to support with an amendment or a comment to the document that is being negotiated right now, the UN Summit of the Future, to make sure that the rights of nature is included in the document, to make sure that it's not only mentioning the rights of future generations, but also of non-human future generations. So I think that it's very important that we are hosting this event and that we are participating at the UN Summit to make sure that the rights of nature, the voice of nature, is being expressed in this forum. So it's my pleasure, of course, to be here. I want to tell you that well, I just arrived to New York a few hours ago. Very excited to be here for this week. I know that Climate Week is a very intense week with lots of programs. But the main idea that we want to bring as the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature to this week is, first of all, this cry out loud that we definitely need to end the fossil fuel era. So that is why we're hosting the International Rights of Nature Tribunal tomorrow, making sure and telling the world that the science is telling us and that impacted people and the world with all the fire, with everything that is happening right now is telling us, that nature is telling us that we need to end with the fossil fuel era and that we need to transit to other spheres. The reason why, of course, we're here, as I was sharing, is to talk about the Rights of Nature movement. It is a movement that I feel that we have an amazing representation in this panel, both from the government perspective and the civil society perspective, of people that are really moving forward in this movement. People that that are advancing the movement in many spheres. I want to share that I am from Ecuador. Ecuador was the first country in the world to incorporate the rights of nature back in 2008. It is still the first and only country that has rights of nature in its constitution. However, there are 39 countries that somehow have rights of nature. 17 of them have legal jurisprudence, legal advances, and we are going to hear from one of them, that is the government of Panama. And we have many other cases that have the rights of nature either at a constitutional level, at a city level, with environment, with ecosystem level, like rivers and ecosystems. And I would like to share two really important messages that I'm pretty sure that Constanza and some others are going to explore a bit more. That is the role of youth in this movement. I think that is what we are coming to hear today, and it's really important. One of them is that, as you know, in less than a month, Colombia is going to be hosting COP16, the CDB, and we are going to be promoting with the government of Colombia and hopefully with more governments the idea that the Amazon is a subject of rights. This case is a case that was first promoted by a group of youth in Colombia that placed a legal case, and there was an amazing judge, Tolosa, that was able to recognize that the Amazon is a subject of rights. But this is a case that was promoted by a group of youth that really wanted to guarantee their future. And this specific verdict is talking about the rights of the Amazon and the rights of the future generations. So I think it's very important that we bring those examples during this week to show the UN that this is not only something that we want to happen and that we want to see, but it's something that is happening in real life, that is happening in real countries that are understanding that the rights of nature, the rights of future generations, and the rights of human beings in general have to come together. Another example that what I wanted to share is an example that we have in my country, Ecuador, with the gas flaring. As many people know, in Ecuador and most places in the Amazon that have oil exploitation, we have gas flares. And these gas flares are a very impactful damage that we are having from the fossil fuel industry that you can see every day. We have more than 400 oil gas flares in the Amazon in Ecuador that are burning every day and that are affecting not only the people that are living around it, but imagine all the insects that are coming, for example, for the light, all the noise that this is created for the not only for the animals, but also for the indigenous non-counted tribes that live in the Amazon that are affected by the noise, by the light and the pollution of these gas flares. We have this case where 9 girls went to court on behalf of the rights of nature and climate change to stop the gas flaring. These 9 girls, either themselves, someone in their family, or close to them had cancer. We have the highest rates of cancer related to the gas flares and people living in the Amazon. And these girls went to court on behalf of the rights of nature, and they actually won the case. So this is a successful case that we have in Ecuador on behalf of the rights of nature, led by youth. And that, I think, is really important. Understand that youth have a huge role in guaranteeing their future. We, the older generation, also have a role in guaranteeing the future, but youth should have that voice. And they had the voice in Ecuador. They won the case. The judge said that those gas flares need to be turned off. So those 430 gas flares need to be turned off. Actually, if the oil company will be even smarter, they will be able to use those gas flares and contain them to use it as renewable energy. So they're doing that. Unfortunately, the verdict says that needs to happen in a period of like 20 years. So what we are fighting right now is that verdict is applied in a lesser time, because otherwise we know that we're running out of time, and this is like a very urgent measure. So I wanted to talk about this case in particular because I think it really reveals the role that youth have. In Ecuador, we have more than 70 cases. So we have cases where we've taken trucks to court and won, and have been able to stop mining concessions happening in very diverse places, and we've been able to have places like Los Cedros saved from mining also because of this biodiversity and how it's being studied in nature. But I wanted to really highlight these 2 cases because they were led by youth and they were successful cases for the rights of nature. So we have an amazing panel, so I would like to pass on the word, but I would like to finish up by saying that this is a really growing movement. When we started this back in 2008, this was something really bold, and people thought we were kind of crazy, but I'm really, really happy that we have more crazy people around the world fighting for the rights of nature, fighting for the future generations. And I think it's really important that the UN considers that the rights of future generations does not only talk about human beings, but it's every living being on the planet that needs their rights being guaranteed. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll pass on the word to Debra Cisneros. She's the Chief of Staff for the Special Representative for Climate Change in the Government of Panama. She is with over 5 years of experience in climate change policy. She has specialized in mitigation strategies for cities and urban environments. Deborah has also degrees from the Technical University of Panama and the University of Seoul, where she honored her expertise in urban resiliency. Her work focuses on development sustainable urban solutions that address the unique challenges posed by climate change in densely populated areas. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm very glad to be here with all of you. Thank you for the invitation. I'm so excited to let you know how is the implementation of our law that is very new. It's like 2 years ago that we have it. So I'm gonna focus on that point because I think it's important that we are the first country in the Central American region that have this law at the national level and not like at the local level as in other parts of the world. And well, it was started or it started to be in effect since 2023. So last year we start using it. And I think the most memorable time where we used it was when we were, I don't know if you heard about the crisis that we had last year in November 2023 about the copper mine, Cobre Panama, the first quantum mine. We had like a month of protests in the streets. It was a very powerful movement. And I think the main focus of that movement was the right of nature. I need to highlight that the law was cited in the Supreme Court, and because of its existences, the Supreme Court declared the contract of the mine unconstitutional. So it was like a win, not only for the use of the law, but a win for the environment, and not only for the people. That this is the main focus of this topic. We need to be worried not only for the impact that we have as a human, but also because of the impact that we are doing in our environment. And we are very glad that since 2 years ago, we have this legal instrument that allow us to like make a voice for the nature that she or it doesn't have a voice itself, and we can be that voice. But also not only we need these legal instruments to be able to raise a voice in those special events and moments that we have the opportunity, as we had it last year in November 23. Not only that, in that event we started to use the law. We also use it in another case. So it has been used 2 times since it started to be in effect. But we have some challenges because not everyone knows about the difference between this important law and the general environment law that is since 1998. And as a Ministry of Environment, we are working on spread the word among all our communities to know that they can use this law when they need to fight for the right of nature in our country. That we already have a legal framework to be able to do what the nature wants us to do. And well, I need to say that the process of how we continue the implementation of this law is still under development. It has been used 2 times, but we, as a Ministry of Environment, what we are working is to establish all the process, develop all the mechanisms that the people can use to use this law. Well, the law is the name of the law is the number 287, I'm sorry, of February 2022, if you want to look it up. Well, I think in the context of Panama, we are very excited that most of in like the area that we are working, they are aware about this important point that is not only the human lives that is important in our world, but also the nature. And this year, the new administration that has been in charge like 2 months ago, since July the 1st, they are very focused, and we are very focused on conservation of our nature, of our natural parks, of our biodiversity. That's of all the priorities of this new government, the Minister of Environment. The first one is that one, conservation, reforestation. We need to take care of our protected areas, because Panama has 70% of our land as protected areas. And it feels like it's good because it's statistically it's a good number, but I need to say that we have forgotten that we need to care of those areas. We have it and we just like, oh yes, we have those protected areas, but we are not doing something else to take care of them and take care of the nature. And this is like the first phrase that always the minister has been saying since he got in this new administration. We are going to the camp. We are going to the nature. We are going to the forest. I want to be outside. I don't want to be there in the office. I want to be there. I want to feel what is needed to do all what I'm thinking that we need to do to protect our environment. He is very powerful on that thought. And if you could see all the actions that he has been doing these 2 months, he's never in the office. He's always like with communities, listening to them, listening to their needs, going to the national parks to see with his own eyes what is needed. What do we need? What financial mechanisms we can create to implement all the initiative that is in his plan. And I'm very proud to say that because I'm from the previous administration. I have been in the Ministry of Environment for almost 3 years, and these new administrations, I really have hope that it will be a very good administration. You have heard about Panama, maybe like we have made some improvement in climate change and biodiversity conservation, but we can do more. I believe that, and this new administration has also that in mind. So yes, I think that is what I can say about the implementation and all the status of Panama right now regarding right of nature. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will be giving the word to Victoria, who is originally from Georgia with family ties in Saratoga Springs in New York. She's a dynamic leader at the intersection of environmental sustainability, law, and justice. As project manager and co-executive director of the Future Generations Tribunal, she drives initiatives to secure the rights of future generations, focusing on innovative legal frameworks and youth-led movements. Victoria graduated from Marymount Manhattan College with a double bachelor in biology and urban environmental sustainability, and a minor in law and ethics. Recently, Victoria earned a degree from the University of Oregon School of Law, specializing in environmental and natural resources law, with a focus on sustainable land use and environmental justice through a public health lens. Beyond her legal work, Victoria also expresses her passion for environmental justice through independent content creation. She contributes to platforms like Action for the Climate Emergency and Black Girl Environmentalist, using blogs, graphics, and videos to highlight the urgency of environmental justice issues. Please, Victoria, thank you.
Thank you everyone for having me, and thank you for including the Future Generations Tribunal in this amazing panel. Since we are here under the Summit of the Future, one of the driving questions that we have and that we think about at our organization, the Future Generations Tribunal, is what will tomorrow ask of us today? And that is something that drives our work. Currently, we know that there are huge gaps regarding the protection of future generations and the need to safeguard their ability to exercise and enjoy their fundamental rights. There are about 81 national constitutions that mention future generations, but they're also vague or inactionable, and they really don't do much in this sense. Also, you have to think about how we define future generations. And as you were saying, future generations shouldn't just include the human entities. Legally, future generations should be defined as all individuals and all communities who will exist after the current generation, encompassing human and non-human forms of life and ecosystems. Because at the end of the day, how are we going to survive on a planet and have future generations without having the ecosystems and the environment to protect us and to sustain us? There's also a lot of like theoretical frameworks when you think of the rights of future generations that have been talked about and been considered since about the 70s and 80s. And this kind of, whether you hear about intergenerational equity or the precautionary principles or even the master's principles of human rights on future generations, none of these have been really enacted in national or international context. And so it's these just big theoretical theories that none of our governments or member states or policymakers are really taking into consideration when thinking about the rights and thinking about the movement. And so you have all of these frameworks and these ideas, but it really gets down to how the government and how the people are able to utilize it and how they are able to make an actionable change. And there really aren't any tools, especially not tools that are based on the community, that are based on youth and children, that are based on Indigenous knowledge, because rights and theories and law is really westernized. It's really also held in high regard in academia and legal scholars. And so you're really getting kind of this siloed information as well that's really not coming from the people. And so that's kind of where our initiative, the Future Generations Tribunal, was born. We are in a space and a time where we're kind of all born into the climate crisis currently. We can't help it. And each of our issues are different. Each of our locations and areas of intersections are different, whether it is focusing on how climate impacts are related to human rights violations in a political context, or how climate impacts are affecting biodiversity loss because of deforestation or extreme weather events. And so the loss of life and sea level rise and things like that. We are in this kind of amazing time where all of these movements are happening, but it seems to be also very siloed. And so we're also an initiative that is trying to bring everything together, and so that we have as much evidence, as much support as possible, so that we can have rights for not just the future generations, but also for nature, but also for whatever else might need particular rights and dignities for. And so, since we are also once again under this kind of UN side event, the UN General Assembly in 2013 did emphasize in a report that future generations are pretty much powerless. They are politically powerless, kind of similar to nature in the sense that the representation of their interests are limited to the present generations, are limited to the people today. They don't necessarily have a voice. They can't show up in the courtroom, they can't speak their mind. And so it's up to us to really bring in their rights and their interests. And so present generations, us currently on this earth, we have to hold this earth in trust. And in the United States, the public trust doctrine is something, especially in my law schools, that we focus heavily on. And so kind of thinking along similarly that people, our present generations, can hold the earth in trust for our descendants. And this is a concept that also is seen across a lot of cultures and a lot of governments as well. And so it's kind of thinking that present generations, we both have this kind of dual duty to protect and uphold these rights and act as stewards for the planet, while protecting and ensuring the protection of rights for both future generations that are human and non-human. And so now, kind of with that kind of background, I would love to explain how, as an initiative, we are trying to do this. And so, after a lot of research and a lot of reflection, and also our team's kind of diverse lived experiences, we kind of figured out that what is needed currently to make the law stand out and to change is that it needs to be participatory. The law is so separated from the people, and that is really, it's an odd juxtaposition, because the law is supposed to be for the people, it's supposed to be by the people, for the people, and yet we are often not in these rooms, we're not often allowed in these spaces, we never have any opportunities, moments, or stages to express our solutions, to express our traumas, our harms that are happening in all of these in the poly crisis, except for moments like these conferences, but even then they're pretty inaccessible. And so the Future Generations Tribunal is trying to answer this by creating regional participatory assemblies all around the world and all of the 7 regions of the world, including the Arctic, that is focused on children, youth, and intergenerational elders and wisdom and indigenous knowledge keepers. And we're having these assemblies, about 200 to 300 people, specifically youth and children, because they are the closest living relatives to the next generation. And so they should have that the power and the authority to be the people that are protecting the next generation and our ecosystems, especially since our youth and our children are going to be the future policymakers, the future lawyers, the presidents, etc. And so it's really putting them in these positions of decision making that is really key in really giving them that power. And it's also transforming testimony. It's making sure that testimony isn't just words, it's also artwork, it's also storytelling, it's also dance and song and culture, because that's also something that is really lost because of the climate crisis. We are losing history, we are losing names, we are losing stories because nations are being flooded, because homes are being burned down, because wars are coming in, and because of agricultural loss and things like that. And so it's really making sure that people have a space to tell these stories, because at the end of the day, the biggest issue in law is overcoming the evidentiary burdens. And that's something that we as a tribunal is our main objective, is because creating this database, having these assemblies, and having these huge case studies and testimonies of all over the world, from the smallest grassroots regions and smallest nations and tribes and communities to the largest multilateral systems. And so we have this huge ever-evolving database that then we can use in our court systems, that then we can use for policies, that we can show the harms that are happening that isn't so secluded, because at the end of the day, it's hard to get over that evidentiary burden. In the United States, over 90% of our court cases are denied because they just don't have the evidentiary proof, and it's very similar all across the world. Most climate cases are getting shut down because it's just so hard to present the harms. So that's something that our initiative wants to do by focusing on youth and children, by focusing on their harms, because our harms are also going to be the next generation's harms and the next generation's harms, unless we act now and make actionable change. And so that's just a little bit about our initiative and our project, kind of our thoughts about future generations and how that is also tied to the right future.
Next up, we will give the word to Constanza. She is the founder and director of the Latin American Legal Program at ELC, at the Earth Law Center. As a lawyer, she is a leading expert on the rights of nature, mainly focused on protecting and conserving rivers and marine ecosystems in the Americas. She specializes in drafting eco-centric legislation, collaborating with local organizations and governments, and advising decision makers on regional legislative projects, with successful campaigns in more than 5 countries in the region. Constanza studied law at the Pontifical Catholic University of Valparaiso in Chile, and has a master's degree in private international law and international trade from the Pantheos Assas University in Paris, in France, and a master's degree in environmental and energy law from New York University. She has been honored by International Rivers as one of the most outstanding women river defenders. Thank you so much for being with us.
Well, today I wanted, we have here a lot about rights of nature, we have here about fifth generation. Today I want to talk a little bit about a special case. We have a big victory this year in the case of the Marañón River. and also share a little bit the pillar of our work. I mean, we hear a lot about victories, but we never know how the victories are built, how long it takes to build this kind of work. One, I want to provide a little context. Maybe many of you don't know nothing about the Marañón River, but the Marañón River is a very important river and ecosystem in Peru, and is one of the main tributary of the Amazon River, which make more and more important this story, because the fight of a group of indigenous women, the Federation of Cucama Women, is not a fight only for their community or their territories. They're fighting for all of us, because they're fighting for a big tributary of the Amazon, and the Amazon is just a really important ecosystem in our world. So their fight is our fight, and the fight of the next generation. So I want to say that the Marañón River has been very menaced, treated by many factors. The first, mining, oil spill, hydroelectric dams, as I can mention some of them. And the Cucama Women's Federation, who are the plaintiff on the case, has been persecuted for many years for this fight. But also they has been working for many years to protect and be the defenders, the first line defenders of this river. The good news is in March of this year we have a landmark ruling, and this landmark ruling said like recognize the Marañón River has right of recognize that have intrinsic right. This is very important because the Peruvian legislation doesn't recognize the right of nature, but in a very interesting case when the judge mixed right of nature, right of future generation, international convention, make a progressive interpretation about the local and national legislation, and advance a new and progressive interpretation about the right of healthy environment, and understand the right of a healthy environment include the right of nature. So it's a very interesting case, it's a very interesting decision when recognized explicitly the right of the river, right to exist, to flow, to regenerate the natural cycle, to be protected, to be of preservation, recovery, among others. It's very specific, this ruling. Also name the communities, not only the Cucama women, the indigenous community as guardian of the river, create a new institution, create the Water Resources Basin Council, and order Peru and the government of Peru to update the environmental management instrument according with this new decision. It's a huge deal, because even if this case is about oil spill, they recognize the right of the whole river and the whole ecosystem. So it changed the way how governments, a society connect with the river, and not only for this generation, but the future generation, and try to ensure not only the right of this generation, but the future generation. And it's very specific because also the decision talk about the precautionary principle, a precautionary approach, which is included in the right of a healthy environment. So we see this triangle of human right, the right of the future generation, the right of indigenous people, and also the right of nature. So having this knowledge, how we achieve that? And I say we because it's a lot of people have been working this first in Cucama, because they have been working alone for at least, and I'm saying just a number, but at least 20 years, because the Federation of Cucama Women was founded in like 20 years ago, but of course they, like the previous generation, have been fighting all their life, a generation, for the health of the river. And so How we achieve that? I think there are several factors I could share with you to replicate maybe this experience in other places. First, I think it's key have an organized group. The Pukama women are very organized group of women with a great leadership, and I think first they are like the natural force of the territories. Our women are organized, they have a federation, they formed 20 years ago, and their objective 20 years ago was talk about gender issues. But they realized they cannot exercise really their human rights, their woman rights without a healthy environment. So what's ridiculous to start talking about gender issues if they don't have drinking water, because it's impossible to exercise this right. So the healthy environment was the pillar of all their battles. So I feel like this woman, which have a really generous leadership, organization, perseverance, and they are not afraid of anything really, show us how an organization can achieve great things. And also, I think the second element is we build coalitions, like Garn know the importance of create these coalitions. And I think why it's important, because after 2 years of fighting alone, the Bukavu women understand they cannot do any more things alone. We need to understand the ecological problem issues are not local problem. It's not a problem of the Kukama women. It's a problem at international level. The environmental issues are issues like go globally. So we have to take this from a local discussion to an international discussion. And that is important to generate coalition, because we are going to them to talk with local lawyers, but we also have international rivers, GAR, Errol Center, like other forums to talk about their issues. Like it's not your issues only, you are not alone. We need to build a coalition to work together to achieve a goal. And another element I think was very important is the permanent empowerment of the river defenders. Women, but also the future generation, because they are a federation, and many women are part, youth are part of that federation. And they have a great leader, like Mariluz, who is in all the pictures, is a leader, but she has been like 20 years leading this. We have to pass to the future generation too. So they have many gaps, they don't have, they're physically isolated, but also they don't have drinking water. They also they don't have the right information. So they need many help to be accompanied in this process. So this is key also for have a victory or partial victory, and also because we know a positive judicial case doesn't mean change anything for them. So they have to keep being accompanied. This will be a fight for the present and the future generation too, of the Pukama women and all the Riparian communities. Also, we realized was very important, at least for the legal case, strategic litigation. We use the right of nature like a catalyst of the right of the future generation and the right of indigenous people. And we use, as I saw before, not only the local law or the national level law, but we use international conventions like the Convention of Biodiversity, the American Convention of Human Rights, because they have more progressive interpretation. And because Peru is part of this, should be aligned with that interpretation. So it's very important, again, to take this from local to international. In the same line, we think was very important to amplify the voices of the Kukama women from the local level to international level. So they start going to, for example, this kind of international forum. They went to SCASUCOP, they went to UN Water Conference, they went to the FOSPA. So they can really talk about this problem at other level, not only local level. And in the same line, we create a global communication strategy to make all the world aware what is going on in their small town in Peru. So, and the newspaper from all Latin America, Spain, like UK, United States, talk about this achievement and also this issue. So I feel like our impact was like, of course, the landmark ruling, but also change, advance a progressive interpretation in a country we never talk about the right of nature, amplify the voices of this woman, and try to ensure like a healthy Marañón for the next generation. And also I want to repeat once again, this is, we have to, the environmental conflict issue, we have to keep this projection internationally. They cannot be alone, they're persecuted permanently. So I think it's very important to understand we need a strategy and we need to learn from other experiences. Thank you.
Before moving to the rest of the amazing panel, maybe we'll check in the audience if there are any questions for the panelists that are on stage now. I can pass the microphone. Yes.
Thank you so much. My name is Simon, and I have a question to everyone, but mainly to the Ministry of Panama. Sorry, I forgot your name. But I was wondering that there's a lot of local groups or communities that are directly affected fighting for laws or fighting for the implementation of certain laws. And I was wondering if there are ways how it doesn't have to be like that the people are already affected and then they go and be like, okay, this company should like go away out of the Amazon and stop destroying everything, but they should never been allowed in the first place to go there, right? So how would the government enforce that the communities don't even have to fight back?
I think that's the main difference between the environment law that we have, the general environment law, and the right of nature law that we created in 2022. The thing is we need to tell people that that's the main difference between those two laws. You don't have to wait until you are affected, that you are impact, you have economic impact or a health impact, or as you as a person, as a human, you can defend the ecosystem. You can defend any little fish that is in the river that is affected for anything that you think it can be improved. We need to let people know that we have that they have this power right now with this new law. And that's a challenge. It's not a challenge. It's something that we need to work really hard to spread the word about that, to strengthen capacities in all the local communities, not only at the technical level that we have in the ministry or in the Supreme Court or with the lawyers, but also with the people. I think we need to work really hard on that, and we need to go to the communities and tell them we have this legal framework that you can use, but also we need to create all the mechanisms to use it, and we are working on that. But I think the main point is to go to the communities and like translate this law in a way that they can understand how we can use it. But yes, I think with this new creation of the law 2 years ago, we attacked that gap that you are saying.
Can I just compliment that with the rights of nature, what is really important is that, of course, if there's a damage, nature needs to be integrally restored. So it's different from reparation. People get reparation, they pay them, for example, if there's a pollution. Nature doesn't accept money. So we need to repair it integrally. And the restoration, integral restoration of nature is really important, but that is when the harm has been done. What is important when we talk about rights of nature is that we include especially two things, that is the precautionary and the precautionary principle and the prevention principle. So the idea with the rights of nature is that you can prevent the damage, that you can know what can, that you can demonstrate the threat and prevent the damage. That's the most important part of the rights of nature. And we have been able to win in Ecuador cases understanding, for example, demonstrating that mining is such a brutal activity in very specific and biodiverse ecosystems that we have been able to prevent mining from coming into the territory. And as you were saying, that is what can be achieved through the rights of nature perspective and through rights of nature laws, because unfortunately, environmental law is almost all the time, although you have those principles as well, is almost always targeting damage that's being done. And talking about like future generations, if you think about the gas flares that I was telling you, a human generation can like take, I don't know, like 40, 50 years, you know, but insects change so fast, for example, their generation, because their lifespan is so short, that a pollution can have like a genetic impacts, for example, so big that you can actually like have a huge impact on species with a pollution. So that is why it's so important to be actually avoiding the impact instead of trying to correct it, because with nature is much harder. But if it's done, you need to be considering that it's not a reparation, you need to consider integral restoration.
Perfect, thank you. I said there was one question here, and then I see these two.
Hello, my name is Jan van der Veens. I'm the human rights lawyer, rights of nature lawyer, and the Dutch ombudsperson for future generation. I'm very excited to be here and to have an all-female panel, which we often have seen, but I also miss out on the guys in the room. So maybe we've got something to do there too. And thank you so much for elaborating on and linking on these topics, because rights of nature is rights of food systems. I think that's a very clear conclusion of today as well. This morning, Antonio Gutierrez started with a talk where he said we all need to act, not just governments, but also businesses. And with Earth Law Center, B Corp at Nijenrode Business University made a beautiful onboarding nature toolbox, which is downloadable. So for anyone, go to onboardingnature.com. And the interesting thing of that is we see more businesses than governments actually trying to be active on taking into account the interests of nature and future generations. We are trying to expand this to future generations and make it even a bigger thing, so make it inspirational. Do you have so first of all, it's an offer to anyone, if contact me via LinkedIn or whatever, to be in touch on that, but do you have any examples of organizations that say, I'm not waiting on this government not to do this, I'm implementing nature or I'm implementing future generations in my business or in my organization or as a lower government? I'm very curious to that.
Yeah, yes. Right here and right here.
Thank you so much, and I think the time is incredible to have a full panel. I was wondering, since you all mentioned different cases in different countries, what were strategies that made your work successful? Like if someone does want to make that kind of work elsewhere in the world, I think it would be incredible to hear, your challenges that you went through and how you overcome that, and then those learnings can be hopefully helpful to others possibly for future works.
Thank you, and then we'll take this last one and then we'll continue to move to the next step.
Thank you so much. My name is Karine Gibert, and I did a lot of work on integrating rights of nature in high schools and early universities. I really love what you said about the testimonies integrating the arts and storytelling. We're doing a lot of work on that in terms of music and soundscapes, and many of you are talking about this idea of spreading this message. And a lot of the high schoolers that I work with have never heard of rights of nature, and I'm working with sustainability coordinators in IB schools or UWC public schools. So I'd love to know, maybe particularly from Victoria, about the ways that you're developing access for the high school students that want to be involved and want to feel empowered and are often overwhelmed, as you said, being born into climate ecological distress.
Thank you. So we have 3 questions on direct implementation strategy and in schools.
So I can start really fast and turn the mic around, but I agree with you. There are many companies and businesses that are moving forward, and B Corps and some others that are taking a big important role. We know that companies are sometimes actually bigger than many countries. So it's really important to involve the private sector in the implementation of this. We haven't seen that in my case in Ecuador, for the rights of nature, we've seen mostly society movements and indigenous people and communities fighting for the rights of nature. But we are very aware that we need to be working more with private companies. And maybe moving to your question about implementation, it's that sense. What we have seen is that people have said governments are going too slow. And companies, great, I think that the companies are also getting this urge, and we need to move on faster. So we have seen throughout this movement, because with the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature, we're able to monitor and we are hoping to educate more people about the rights of nature that you're questioning. But what we want to do is we want to connect people who want to do something. Not even though they didn't have rights of nature in their constitution, in their laws. As you heard from Constanza, that's the case where indigenous people got together, got organized, and got a case passed, even though that wasn't like Peru doesn't have legislation for the rights of nature. So we have seen those successful stories, and we do have, as Garn, many hubs that maybe Rafa can mention a little bit in her talk. But we have many hubs where we are wanting to educate people about, if you want to get organized with youth through like a legal case, through with the academic sector or by region or something, you can see what has been a successful story in Spain, in India, in New Zealand, in Brazil, etc., and see what can apply to you. Because as we know, legal systems change everywhere. But the idea is that we can mirror and say, like, look, this worked for me. Use this strategy, or especially like what can be done. In the US, it's very hard to change the constitution, but maybe change a local ordinance, what has been worked here. So that is what we are aiming to do as Garn, and we're more than welcome to help you if you're interested.
Well, same as Ecuador, we need to work on bring the private sector in to work in the right of nature, and also to be worried about the environment, not only when they have an impact, but to prevent that impact. I think we have a pivot point last year with the case I mentioned before, the copper mine case, because that case helped people to realize how important it is to prevent this impact that we already have, even though we were fighting to stop the activity. The mine has been working for 20 years, and when it started, nobody cared. Like the decision makers, I'm sorry, didn't care about the impact that would have in our environment. I think I'm very optimistic since then, because people that might not know or might not realize how big this is, how important this is, they started hearing last year, and that included also the private sector, that we had a lot of positive response from some of them, not from all, because of course that activity impacted also the economy of the country. But yes, we don't have like a specific cases that I can mention that we work with the private sector specifically, but that's our case. And regarding the experiences that I can share, I think within the Ministry of Environment, I can say for the last 5 years, we have been working on having a lot of youth in all the offices, and that power, that energy that we, the youth, bring to an institutional organization, it has been very helpful, because we have that energy that maybe other people that have been working on this and haven't accomplished anything because they have a lot of challenge, they are tired, or they already gave up, saying like, okay, I tried everything and I couldn't, and all the younger people are like, no, we can do it. And I can say that the ministry has been working in youth education. We have a climate change academy, and in that climate change academy that is done by the ministry, the Ministry of Environment, we We have done it since 4 years, we started 4 years ago. With once a year, and after we were adding more sessions and adding more sessions, and we have already 8 generations graduated from that Climate Change Academy. And all the people there have that energy that when we see that, okay, you want to work with us, you want to come here and help to implement all the initiatives that you think that it can work in our country, we bring them. I'm one of them, so I can say that I can say that that academy was really has been really helpful, because you can explore. First, for us, we can get all the knowledge that we need to have the tools to go to the implementation. And for the decision makers, they can have like a younger perspective. They can have this energy that they don't have anymore, and that complements very well all the activities that we need to do regarding, well, not only the environment, also the sustainable development and well, the climate action. So yes, I don't remember the last questions. I think it was related.
Talked about it also the academy.
Okay, perfect. So I will pass the mic.
Thank you.
And maybe we just take this intervention and then we move to the panel so that we have time to listen.
Yeah, I'll just directly respond to your question. Law is storytelling, policy is storytelling. Everything that makes the world around comes from stories, especially like from all of these examples and all of these successful court cases. It's people getting together, talking about their experiences, talking about their harms, but also talking about the solutions and how we can get together. And so if you can, the Future Generations Tribunal, we're really trying to change how evidence is viewed and how evidence can be stories, how evidence is not just speaking and testimonies and having all these charts and graphs, but it also is the artwork, it also is the dance, it's also the cultural storytellings, the histories, and especially if we're in the context of thinking about having children and youth in these legal court systems and these legal cases and these policies make decision makings, it's having that access to information, it's having access to knowledge. And so that's also what our evolving database is trying to lift the burden of, is by having as much information as possible that's as accessible as possible. And it has not information that is just legalese and human rights policy and principles and things like that, but also comes down to the everyday layman person and to the smallest 3-year-old can understand. And so that it's really having such a grassroots, bottom-up participatory mechanism. And in terms of like what you're doing with your classroom, something that the tribunal is thinking about is now how we're getting the arts involved. And so that might be creating game-based tribunals, and so that we're in the classrooms and we're having simulations that are talking about, oh, this is what's happening in my hometown or my community back home, and this is something that I would want to do. So it's thinking about creative solutions like that. And I think that's also the key to the climate crisis now, is that I feel like gone are the days where just like the scientists and the legalists and all the things. It's really being about movement based. It's backed by movement. It's backed by the indigenous knowledge. It's backed by people, and people are stories. And so that's how I have to say to that.
Thank you so much. We will move to the next panel. So we'll ask Doreen Valletti, Rafaela Iturralde, and Patricia Rinaldi from NAPA to move on. So we will first start with Patricia Rinaldi. She's from Matas. She's an associate professor of international relations at Faculdade de Campinas in Brazil, director of its Center of Studies and Research in International Relations, and the coordinator of its Harmony with Nature study group. She's part of the knowledge network of the UN Harmony with Nature program and has partnered with Mapas for research and advocacy on the rights of nature and non-anthropocentric education in Brazil. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Maria. Good morning, everybody. I am Patricia Rinaldi. I'm here representing the civil society organization MAPAS in Brazil. I work at the College of Convene in Brazil, and we have an advocacy and research partnership with MAPAS. Unfortunately, MAPAS director Vanessa So, who is here in the picture, was not able to come to New York and join us for this meeting. So I'm here representing her. I hope, I can fit her shoes because she's really engaged in approving more and more organic laws in Brazil, recognizing the rights of nature. So I'm here representing her. I may not be able to express everything that MAPA does in terms of grassroots work because I work in partnership with Vanessa, but I'll do my best to give you an overview on MAPA's strategy to push for more organic laws recognizing the rights of nature in Brazil at the local level. So MAPAS is a civil society organization in Brazil. It has a specific legal status, and the role of MAPAS is really to build bridges between local communities and organize them to understand the Brazilian legal system and how can they bring their bioculture, the relationship with nature, and translate that into organic laws that recognize the rights of nature in Brazil at the local level. So MAPAS works with the idea of biocultural identity. So MAPAS helps communities to identify how their own cultures are connected with natural entities. So the first strategy of MAPAS is reconnecting this relationship with nature that our anthropocentric values and Western values have separated us in many local communities in Brazil. So by creating this biocultural identity, then MAPAS helps communities to translate that into law. And it's difficult because law is very technical. Brazilian legal system is really complex. So MAPAS give, all the assistance local community need to translate their biocultural identity into laws and translate the technicalities of Brazilian legal systems. So these biocultural identities could be part of organic laws. And in that sense, the strategy of MAPAS, and should I click here? Let's see.
The green button.
Okay, good. So MAPA's strategy is really about a grassroots strategy. And it's not based on court cases, as one of the previous panelists explained. In Brazil, we're working more on including the rights of nature as part of organic law. And I've been telling you organic law, that might not be a very familiar term for you. Okay, good, because it's really specific from Brazil legal system. So in Brazil, since we have a federal system, we have federal laws, but the cities, the municipalities, they can pass their own laws, which are called organic laws. And these organic laws are like the municipal constitutions. They have this meaning of being the constitution of a city. And this means that when we recognize the rights of nature into organic law, since they have this constitutional status at the local level, this means that we're really integrating and mainstreaming the rights of nature at the local level, connecting it with the biocultural identity of these local communities. And here we have the map of the many cities and municipalities that MAPAS has supported in Brazil throughout the years. The progress is massive, because even more local communities in Brazil, they are realizing that if they want to exert their human rights at different levels, it needs to connect with the rights of nature. And that's the essence of these organic laws. And MAPAS really works with this bottom-up strategy, and the idea is not that MAPAS the organization does not have the solutions, because that's the case with many civil society organizations when they are interacting with the local communities. Sometimes civil society organizations, they come with a package deal. This is the solution. We have done this in different cities, so take this and copy this. That's not MAPA's strategy, you know? MAPA's does not come with a done packed deal because each situation, each local community, they have their specific struggles, their specific cultures and identities, and a very specific relationship with nature. So MAPA's does not offer a prepaid package, just sort of thing. The idea is to really listen to the community and listen to natural entities, and from that listening process, recognizes what we will merge as a new identity to transform that into law. So MAPA's is really working with the struggles of local communities and indigenous peoples in Brazil and supporting these communities to find their own voices, their own way to translate those biocultural identities into laws, organic laws that recognize the rights of nature. And one of the examples of that is the first Amazon River in Brazil that was recognized as a subject of rights, which is the large river or the Comino main river in the indigenous language. This was a very important achievement for the community in the state of Rondônia, in the Brazilian Amazon, because as Constanza said, you know, rivers in Latin America, they're suffering due to all types of economic exploitation and the lack of support from governments at all levels. So MAPA supported the local communities and indigenous communities to start this process of listening to the river, and here you can see some pictures of that process, and that process involved children and youth. So we started, you know, they started to listen to the conversations between children and the river, and they mapped that conversation. And from that, different stories emerged, different ways to interact with the river emerged. The river is like the big guidance of that community. So they took lessons and recommendations from the river, and those lessons and recommendations that they listened from the river were translated into the organic law, recognizing the rights of people in the main river. So this is one of the examples in which MAPA has been working on. And with that, the idea is to translate this recognition in organic law into public policies. So MAPA is now working with different Brazilian municipalities, which have already passed organic laws recognizing the rights of nature. And now the idea is to get this law and translate that into public policies, because that's where implementation is. For MAPAs, including the rights of nature into organic law is not enough, because you have the law there, the text is really beautiful, but we need to do something with this text, and that's when public policies are in place. So MAPAs is also supporting the development of different public policies at different levels, for instance, health, education, food sovereignty, ways in which the rights of nature can be translated into practice, and also focusing on ecological and solidarity economy. Because if you really want to implement the rights of nature that are recognized in these organic laws, we really need to find new ways of fostering jobs, of creating income, but that's not at expense of natural entities or based on increasing GDP. So finding new ways of promoting solidarity economy at local level is important. And to finish, as we're talking about future generations as part of the Summit of the Future, MAPAS is working to bring that at the federal level. So we're trying this movement of now bringing all these local experiences to amend our constitution. It's going to be a long road, a long work, but we're starting this process. And for that, we need to educate more people on non-anthropocentric views of the world. That's why MAPAS now is engaging into the well-living school or Escola del Buen Vivir, in which we gather different groups of students, children, young students. We have my college students also have been part of this school in which we give a different education to our students through arts, through ecological activities, through discussing the rights of nature, but listening to natural entities. This is a very immersive program, and we're trying to teach and learn from future generations in this interaction based on the well-living principles. And here you have another examples of our methodology. And this is the way MAPAS is contributing in Brazil to expand the recognition of the rights of nature while teaching and learning for future generations, including nature. Here's MAPA contact. We have also engaged into multilateral levels. We can discuss that later on. But here's MAPA contacts. You can get familiar with their work. There's always room for collaboration and exchange of knowledge. So thank you for the opportunity, and I get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to take the one next to Doris, quickly. It's okay because I think there's also another presentation for her. So Doris is part of many initiatives that I'm reading now. Since 2013, she's a member of the organization Scientific International, which organizes the Geneva Forum for Rights of Nature annually at the UN in Geneva. Until 2024, she was also co-accountable for the Hunger Project Switzerland. Until 1995, she was in charge of Youth Ending Hunger Switzerland. In 1991, Doris also led a successful grassroots campaign for the ratification and implementation of the Declaration of Rights of the Child for Switzerland. And she has also initiated the global signature campaign asking the UN to adopt the Universal Declaration of Rights of Mother Earth in 2011. The movement delivered an account of 117,000 signatures to the UN Secretary General, and later even more at COP21 in Paris. And the next goal is to deliver 1 million signatures at COP30 in Brazil in November 2025. Thank you so much, Sherry.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. I think rights of nature is a labor of love. Because in our hearts, when nature gets harmed, like for example, I remember the deep sea horizon oil spill, and we saw these birds covered with oil. We closed our eyes and we wanted to cry. And that's why I think rights of nature is a labor of love. Because we are part of nature. We love our Mother Earth. And the legal system was started amongst humans to do business with each other. But why? What are we doing business over? Nature. We mine, we treat nature as a thing, we buy and sell, but we don't ask nature. She is the main part. She's also obviously the source of life, but we forgot that business is done with her as a thing. And that's what needs to be reformed in the legal system. That is what everybody here is working on, the reform of the legal system. To give nature a legal status, to acknowledge her as a living being with rights, just like humans. And then we can legally defend her when she's harmed, when we want to cry, when forests are clear cut, or when rivers are polluted and fish are dead belly up floating down the river. When children of the indigenous people die in the rainforest because petrol has poisoned their source of life. When nature has legal status, we can then legally defend her. Right now, it's legal to mine, to damage nature, to kill nature. That's legal. And that's the reform that's urgently needed. I have a business background, and I worked for ending world hunger for many years. I went to Bangladesh once, where the people in Bangladesh have worked hard to build up new homes, and then a flood came and washed it all out of the river. And this wonderful man from Bangladesh had tears in his eyes because his family was left away. And he said, we can work to build our homes over and over again, but as long as it's legal to clear cut the forests in the Himalayas, the floods will keep coming. So rights of nature defends life. It defends humanity who live in the forest. It defends the dolphins who are floating in the river. It defends the deer who walk in the forest. And that's when I realized, oh, just working on ending world hunger is not enough unless we defend the source of life. So one day I had this idea, oh, we need a declaration for rights of Mother Earth. How come we only have a declaration of human rights at the UN? It's like the UN is standing only on one leg, one pillar. It's lopsided unless we have another declaration, a declaration for the rights of Mother Earth, a declaration for the foundation of life. So we started this global petition asking the UN to adopt the Declaration of Rights of Mother Earth. And I forgot to put the slides. Anyway, the declaration. So, okay, this is another point I want to make, I'm sorry. We've had the Declaration of Human Rights since after World War II in 1948, which was necessary at the time because humanity was suffering greatly after all that happened to humanity, and it was necessary, and it's still necessary. However, we forgot nature. In wars, nature gets destroyed too. And humans have become very much more, the system has become digitalized to do business with each other. So the destruction has happened so much faster, so that over the last 40 years, we have lost 69% of the global biodiversity. And over 75% of original forests have been lost. And there are thankfully many reforestation projects happening, but it's never the same. New trees are never the same as the original forests. Trees and forests who provide oxygen for humanity. Rivers who provide the water for humanity and all other beings. So I think it's time for a Declaration of Rights of Mother Earth. Don't you think so?
Yes.
We are collecting. We're now at over 400,000 signatures, and I'm gonna skip some. We would like everyone to sign the petition. Every signature is a declaration of love for the planet. And I participated also at the Summit for the Future yesterday, and I heard Mr. Antonio Guterres say we need a system upgrade. And I think the system upgrade the UN needs is the Declaration of Rights of Mother Earth.
Last but certainly not least, we will give the word to Rafaela Iturralde. She is representative of the Youth Hub of GARD. Rafa grew up in Ecuador, where she soon discovered her love for Mother Earth and developed a passion for the rights of nature. She has been involved in the rights of nature movement primarily through GARD, particularly in the international tribunals for the rights of nature in Paris and Bonn, as well as assisting in the organization of the International Symposium for the Rights of Nature to commemorate the 10th anniversary of Rights of Nature in Ecuador. She holds her degree in Environmental Studies and International Relations from Skidmore College in New York, In 2017, she studied in New Zealand, where she learned and researched about the voice of nature and the rights of the Wanganui River. She currently lives in New York City, where along with her peers, she founded the Garden Youth Hub and continues to be part of the movement by also serving as Garden's Global Hub Coordinator. Prior to joining the Amazon Sacred Watersheds Alliance, where she now serves as Global Partnerships Coordinator, she worked as Latin American Regional Organizer of the Waterkeeper Alliance, supporting more than 40 grassroots organizations throughout the region, from Tijuana to Chile and Patagonia. Please, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you everybody for being here. It's a huge honor to be with such esteemed panelists. So I want to talk a little bit about Garden, especially the Garden Youth Hub, but all the hubs that we have in Garden. In 2018, when we gathered for the 10 years, for the Symposium on the Rights of Nature, the 10 years of Garden, we talked about how do we engage our membership? How do we bring more people into the movement? People are curious, people want to learn more, and what can this strategy be? And I remember the European Hub and the Youth Hub were some of the first ones that said, we definitely want to create a hub. We want to create a spot for people to organize, to get together, to learn. And this spot doesn't have to be for experts. Garden is a hub, a massive umbrella of experts of the rights of nature, and of member organizations of the rights of nature. And so we said, how do we leverage this membership? How do we create a space for people to learn, for people to activate as well? And little by little, we have 5 regional hubs now, and we have 3 thematic hubs. We have regional hubs in North America, in Latin America, in Europe, in Africa, and in Asia Pacific. And we have regional hubs for youth, for legal, and for academics. And all these hubs are acting in many different ways. They don't all act the same way, and we don't manage them in a way that we tell them exactly what they have to do. It's we understand people organize different ways in different parts of the world, and also people like to, the hubs serve different purposes. And for this, you're not required to do anything specifically, but just be a safe space for people to come learn about the rights of nature and continue acting on the rights of nature. And for this, the Youth Hub, it was one of the first hubs to be created as part of Garden, and I think it was because it was a lot of us young people powering all these, tribunal, working in the vaccines. So we said, where is our space? And it is, rights of nature is connected to the rights of future generations, but we want to take part and have a voice. And so we gathered, it was like 4 of us, took us a year to get together, and then we started doing webinars, and soon after COVID came up, but we were still able, and I think, the silver lining of that is that we were able to reach international spaces like the Youth IUCN conference as youth in rights of nature movement without necessarily having to travel to those spaces. I think that is more of a challenge now, organizing, traveling, and being present, but we do our best to find representation locally so that young people can speak on the rights of nature and continue to build this movement among youth. So the Rights of Nature right now is creating a lot of local events, local youth events. We also had last year the first cohort of campus ambassador program. So we train people in high schools or colleges where how they can be a representative or an ambassador for the rights of nature in their campus and how they can hold these events in their campus. The Youth Hub also created the Garden Book Club, where we read a lot of the books of Garden funders and Garden experts. And it's amazing because Garden has the access to bring the authors of these books to speak on their book and to have a conversation with not only the Youth Hub, but people from all of the other hubs also join these book clubs. So that has been very inspiring as well. And I think, for the Garden membership, a huge benefit to be able to have a conversation with the people that we read in books. And still, every time I meet with the Garden Executive Committee, for me, it's a huge honor to be able to talk to these people that I look up to and I've learned so much from their writing. So I think Garden also holds a beautiful space for that. But I wanted to dive deep into a case of rights of nature where the Garden and the Youth Hub wasn't directly involved in the case, but I think it connects Garden and the rights of nature, the rights of future generations in a beautiful way. And this is the Amazon case of the Colombian Amazon, where in 2018, 25 youth plaintiffs represented by the organization de Justicia filed a lawsuit against the Colombian government and the Ministry of the Environment because of the deforestation in the Amazon, stating that the deforestation was a violation to their right to a healthy environment, right to water, right to life. And so at the local level, it was first dismissed, but at the Supreme Court level, it actually, the case won. And part of the court rulings is that the court recognized that this intrinsic connection between the health of the Amazon and the health of this massive ecosystem and the rights of future generations. And this granted legal rights to the Colombian Amazon. And also, you know, and it's interesting to note that this court came to case without being a rights of nature lawsuit. It was a rights of future generation lawsuit. But in turn, as a result, it granted legal rights to nature and to the Amazon. And I think this creates a world of possibility of how we can use human rights, which are already in place, but they're not being implemented, and how through that we can continue to grant rights to different levels, as Nancy was saying. And that's also another beautiful thing about the rights of nature, is that there's not a guidebook or a rule book on how to do rights of nature. I'm sure we have a lot of toolkits, but there's so many different ways to implement it that we can be creative. And I think young people, we're especially creative. And we're eager to find different ways. And I think one of the tools that can help us a lot is a tool of the academic hub, is the eco-jurisprudence monitor. And I actually used it last night to make sure that I had the facts right for the Amazon case. So it's a map, you go into it, you click on the different cases, and you can learn what type of case it was, what type of report, and if it's rights of nature or other type of earth laws as well. So it has been very well thought out. It's an amazing tool to use. And I think we can use it for the rights of future generations tribunal as well, because it is separated in different tribunals where the court has been, where the case has been heard. And so, yeah, it's an encouragement for everybody to use these tools that we have, but also to continue building these movements and to continue to grow the movement, to activate. If you want to be an active member of GARD, there are spaces to do so. You don't have to be an expert. So it is an invitation, and it's just a great place to be, and I see how it's growing, and it has been very encouraging in the last 10 years that we've been, or I've been doing this.
We have 9 minutes left. If there are questions for Patricia, Rafa, Doris, or maybe previous panelists, yes, I see a question there.
Thanks to every speaker. This was lovely. I'm really curious about mythos. My master's work was based in the Peruvian Andes, and I was studying the Great Weird. And I'm really curious in the Brazilian context. What is the sense and the perception of this idea? And is it being engaged at a local level, like with the school? And what is it like also from a civil society and from a government perspective? How is it being engaged?
As well, question. I think are there other questions?
No. Then I think we can listen to your answer and see if others first.
Thank you for your question. Yes, in Brazil, most movements are really local. MAPAS has started this movement to propose an amendment to the federal constitution, but it's still a long-term strategy, because Brazil is a really big country with different realities, with different communities. So starting bottom up, it makes sense, you know. It really comes from the struggle of local communities, communities that really need to survive because of natural entities, for instance, fisheries, and other very specific Brazilian local communities like Quilombolas. I don't know if you're familiar with, but it's a very important local community in Brazil. And then we have indigenous communities that are really affected because of the capacity of our federal government to really recognize and legally recognize the rights to the territories. So that's why MAPA's strategy of focusing on organic law is so important because they, at the local level, they really work as constitutions. So once you have the recognition of the rights of nature and local constitutions, you really create a framework to start developing public policies, then to engage, public officers, for instance, that needs training. It's really the Brazilian environmental situation is really difficult. We had major setbacks the last administration, so all things must be built at the same time. But we are seeing more success at the local level because then we have, these specific tools that can be approved faster. And as you saw by the map, the movement has been growing really fast. And Brazil right now is unbreathable. You cannot breathe. Every day is like a great day, and it's a sunny day, but we have snow everywhere. And I think people is now realizing that we're really part of nature. And unfortunately, this sort of crisis, they also bring the opportunity of having more dialogues about it. And especially young generations, they really want to listen about it and learn about the rights of nature and be rights of nature champion. That's why I think it 100% with education is so fundamental. It's a long-term goal, but we're going to get the results. I don't know if I addressed all the concerns, but that was the idea. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions in the room? Are there questions we can take from online also? Yeah, there are specific questions. No. Okay. No. Very specific questions maybe we can get interested in finding resources on all the websites of the amazing panelists we have. So I think there's nothing left than to thank all the panelists for your amazing contributions, your amazing work. Thank you so much to the audience also and to the people that were online with us. And yes, let's continue the conversation. Climate Week has just started and rights of nature are not done yet. So thank you so much. Have a great afternoon and a great day. Thank you so much.